Hello and welcome to our course on existential happiness. As with all of these courses, our goal is to experience life in a different way, to look at it differently and to respond to it differently, and to learn how to integrate some of the tremendous wisdom that's conveyed to us in our vast Jewish heritage that gives us the tools to deal with life and to live life the way the Creator intended it to be lived. So one of the things that we're really commanded to do, and is extremely important, and everybody really wants it, is to be happy with life. And it's not an easy thing, and it's not something we're necessarily born with. Some people are lucky to have a upbeat kind of bubbly personality where it's not a problem for them to be happy. But a lot of us have to work on that, and it's not an easy thing to attain. So first of all, what do we mean by the kind of existential happiness that we're talking about here? This is a little bit different than something like we call Simcha Shel Mitzvah. Simcha Shel Mitzvah, which hopefully we'll talk about at some point, is the idea of coming to the performance of the mitzvahs, the commandments that we're instructed to do, with a positive attitude, with a feeling that we're choosing them of our own, volition, that we're not being forced into it, we're not doing like a burden, and we inject a level of happiness and positive attitude towards these performance of these actual mitzvahs. But what we're talking about with a existential happiness is a little different. There, it's similar to what the French call joie de vivre. It's happiness in just being alive. And in order to be happy to be alive, you have to have a basic attitude and understanding of what's behind existence as a whole, what's really there. Now, there's a lot, especially today, of negative feeling towards what the universe is. Once people start to question the whole idea of a creator, and that the world is created for a purpose and with meaning and with a destiny, once you question those principles, it comes much more. It's much more difficult to attain a level of happiness in looking at what life is about. But Judaism, of course, gives us a much different perspective, and one that we have to really integrate and internalize and be able to see in our everyday life, so we don't have to really work at it. And this itself leads us to a level of a kind of an equilibrium. It's a constant default state of happiness that we want to achieve in our lives. Then the challenge becomes, we have inevitable ups and downs. Everybody has times that events in their lives become difficult for them, and things that can lead to inevitable sadness. How do we bounce back to that level of the equilibrium happiness through responding to events in a way that, rather than getting stuck in that pattern, which can sometimes snowball out of control, where the person could fall into depression and dysfunctionality, and that's a very, very dangerous state to be in. So we want to find the techniques, the tools to be able to bring us back to that level of the equilibrium happiness that we're trying to establish. The main advantage that we have with this approach is that once we cognitively, we intellectually and emotionally understand what's behind this whole thing, then we are not so much the victims or dependent on things that are out of control. If your concept of happiness is dependent on what happens to you in life, or attaining certain things that you really don't have control over, or that you have to be able to get from someone else in order to be happy, then ultimately you're not guaranteed that you'll ever get to that level of happiness. And certainly it's not a constant thing. You're dependent on that, waiting for that to happen or looking forward to that to happen, and it's not something that that you have control over. The other aspect is, as we said before, if something happens to you that doesn't fit in with that expectation, then you can end up being victimized and not having a way of coping with that. So we're trying to give the tools here in a very clear and concise manner to be able to achieve this level of simchas achayim, something that's, again, a constant level and something we can always come back to. So the way that we're doing that is to establish certain positive attitudes and certain understandings about the reasons why things the way the way they are, a kind of a core belief system, and then to figure out what are the responses that we have to implement when things happen that seem to contradict that or put us in an emotional state that's not particularly healthy. So with that said, I think we're ready to progress on to the lessons, and hopefully step by step we'll get to a higher level. And I certainly encourage you to respond to these lessons, discuss, give us our feedback and discuss any points that you want to in the forum. We're looking forward to that kind of response, and any suggestions are very much appreciated. Okay, thanks a lot.